Kia ora koutou katoa. Welcome to this meeting of the Community and Environment Committee. First up we have, firstly I think I need to point out that we are testing some technology for the district plan hearings, which means that today's proceedings are being recorded by that black box over there. So if anyone has got any issues with that, please let us know. But they are normally recorded anyway, so it's all public. Today's public forum, we have two different presenters. The Archibald Baxter Memorial Trust have postponed their presentation to committee to a later date. But Lyndon, Mr. Wiggery, I think you're here to present on Middle Beach sand dunes, so please come on up.
Thank you, Ginty, for this opportunity to speak to you all today about the Middle Beach sand dunes. You have a copy of my notes, so I invite you to follow, and there are appendices which I will refer to as I go through. Last Monday week, I attended a public meeting about the effects of the 3 June 2015 flooding in South Dunedin. I have to say, folks, there are a lot of angry people there, and to be honest, they are still looking for meaningful answers from the Dunedin City Council. However, what was mentioned in passing by a local St Clair resident was the equal importance of preserving the sand dunes at Middle Beach, because without this action, the residents of South Dunedin face a double whammy. A point, as you all know, made very clear in Jan Wright's Environment Report last November, which you have a copy of the page there as Appendix A. So it is from a South Dunedin perspective, where I work, do my personal business, and have many friends living on the flat, that I make these representations to you today. As you know, it is council policy based on the 2011 Tonkin and Taylor report that a holding pattern be effected until a more permanent solution is found. Last January, Richard Saunders submitted a request to you, as you recall, for funds to continue the long-term investigations, and happened to mention that an updated December 2015 TNT report had been received by staff on holding the line with a short-term holding pattern. Richard has graciously made a copy of it available to me, and you have one as well in terms of this reputation. That is Appendix B. And I note, and I trust that you've read it if you've received a copy, that it recommends the following. The damaged sand sausages to be repaired and upgraded to what TNT call mega bags, an estimated cost of $460,000. The Reno mattresses lying further down towards St Kilda to be repaired and extended at an estimated cost of $120,000. Obviously, councillors, there are processes to be followed, including confirming the design of the specialised mega bags, renewing the OR cents, which I understand expired in July 2014, arranging the restockpiling of the sand at Mainaroa Road, and finding the extra $580,000 from the existing 2015-16 Parks and Reserves budget. This process is necessary because it seems that the initial funding of $250,000 per annum for the holding pattern was removed by the 2012 LTP. And Ginty, I know that I have emailed you about that, so you may have something to say about that in question time. And that is attached as Appendix C. You recall, councillors, Bill Brown from 17A Victoria Road telling you last August, and I was present, that he seriously doubted whether these sand dunes would survive another winter. And it was encouraging for Richard to inform us in the ODT on 12 February 2016, and I quote, that detailed design of the new sand sausages was expected to be completed by the end of next month, and construction to be complete, that's spending the $580,000 I assume, by mid-June. Councillors, that is 90 days from now. 90 days from now. And you will note from the attached report on page 3, that's the TNT report, Appendix B, that the report states there is, and I quote, a 6 to 8 weeks lead time for the meagre bag containers to be fabricated and supplied in New Zealand, as there's only limited stock. In other words, staff need to place a formal order by mid-April for the June deadline to be met. In the last email from you, Ginty, you advised that as matter fell between budgets, it was being rightly treated as an operational matter by staff and management. And management were confident that work would be completed by the end of the financial year. While that is reassuring, the question remains about keeping councillors and the public at large informed with regular updates, so that the June deadline target of Richard is met. And it is disappointing that apart from this public forum, this most important matter is not on your formal agenda. In terms of the Local Government Act 2002, councillors, I understand, have a statutory role to govern and are understandably reluctant, and I agree with that, to interfere with staff operations. Whilst the Act doesn't define the governing principles, they are generally defined in other sectors as the following. 1, you make a strategy. 2, you provide policy, that's rules and guidelines. 3, you appoint people to carry out the plan. 4, you make people accountable. 5, you measure their performance. And 6, you are making sure risks are managed. So councillors, if you reflect on those last 4, you can see the implications with the issue of the sand dunes. And all I ask is that regular updates be presented to this wonderful committee in the months ahead leading up to June. Now, whether it's senior staff updating the chair, that's you, Ginty, and that information being passed on by you to the committee, or staff expected to report to regularly monthly agenda item, I'm the first one to say as a ratepayer, that is entirely your prerogative, that is over to you. Because to satisfy at least 2 councillors sitting around this table, it means that the update comes into the public domain. The ODT hopefully report on it, and the rest of us get to know that meaningful progress has been made to complete the holding pattern upgrade by 15 June. Councillors, we just have 90 days. If I can just close, it is in looking at something that I picked up from Blair Fitzharrell's report dated March 2010. And it's the conclusions and recommendations which I've entitled Appendix D. Look at 6. Coastal dunes are the main line of defence against catastrophic flooding from future storm surges at higher sea levels. Their protection, strengthening and hardening adjacent to vulnerable communities must be of high priority to the Council. So councillors, I ask you to be faithful to Blair Fitzharris's recommendation. We have 90 days. Thank you, Ginty.
Thank you, Mr Wiggery. Are you happy to take questions? Councillors, any questions of Mr Wiggery? Councillor Calvert.
Just a quick one. Your hoped for option of monthly reporting, however that happens, we don't have monthly meetings between now and June, so would you imagine that the public might have a way of us reporting, giving them information monthly, or how would you imagine, because if we don't have that number of...
Sure, I appreciate that, Hari. What I would suggest as a ratepayer is if it's not something that Ginty can do at a monthly meeting, then if staff were keeping the chair of this committee regularly updated, then I'm sure that she would be able to feed that into, say, the monthly meeting of the council and just keep us informed. The important thing is, councillors, we need to find some mechanism where you can regularly check on progress for this absolutely important issue sitting out there, so that the ODT can report and the public doesn't get nervous. Out there, they are really starting to ask what's happening. So I'm just trying to be really helpful here, And I am advocating on, as I say, at least a couple of councillors who have come to me and said, Lyndon, we appreciate you coming because we need to have regular updates. So I'm just expressing a really valid but reasonable request, and I trust that you can find some way, I'm sure you will, some way to be able to get around the legal sort of impasses of, and I appreciate that you may not meet monthly.
Thank you, Lyndon. A question from Councillor Noon and then Councillor Thompson.
It's probably more of a question for you, Madam Chair, but as recently as yesterday we received an update, and I just wondered, from Richard Saunders, I just wondered what you had planned as Chair of the committee, just how to manage the dissemination of that information. For example, had you given that any thought?
To the wider public?
Correct.
Yeah. So I'm not sure, Mr. Saunders, whether or not you were able to comment, or perhaps we could get an email from you later, given this isn't the forum. But I think the matter of communication has been high on the conversation, or the list of points that have been raised, particularly by the Sinclair Action Group. I think Richard is in conversation with the Sinclair Action Group about the most appropriate mechanisms to ensure that the public is kept appraised of issues. Obviously, reports to committee are one way to do that, but they are quite resource intensive in terms of staff time. So given that we do have such a limited amount of time, it's a balance between regular reporting, which is time consuming, and staff being having the capacity to get on and do the work. Given that this is only one matter on their work stream. But I think your point is well taken, Lyndon. We have a website, or dedicated part of the website, which is dedicated to the Sinclair staff. Staff have been looking at that as a mechanism. They've been looking at various different mailing lists as a mechanism. There are a range of options being looked at, but yeah, again, thank you for raising it. Councillor Thompson, you have a question.
Lyndon, it seems that one of the things that you're querying here in the wider sense is that committees and indeed council make decisions on papers and they then largely disappear from view. Would a mechanism that is used in many other entities, which is at the front of committee meetings, a monthly or bi-monthly, depending on how frequently the meetings are held, report from the relevant general manager that could canvass whatever issues are ongoing, would that be something that might facilitate a better understanding of what happens after council's made decisions?
I think, Richard, that's an excellent suggestion, because I recognise you as Chair of Finance Committee, and I know from my previous engagements with council, when you look at the agenda of the Finance Committee, you get a very useful summary report of financial activities, the various departments, you know, favourable, unfavourable, that U and F things. And if council staff with committee chairs were to look at something like that, I think that's a very good suggestion to reflect on and take up.
Any further? Councillor Whiteley.
Lyndon, I guess the key message I've got from what you've presented to us is that June 15 is the deadline for the sand sausages and the Reno mattresses to be in place. And I guess the key element there is protecting the toe of the sand dunes.
Yes, yeah, yes, absolutely. Yeah. And if I could just say, Andrew, if you work back to make sure that that deadline is met, then to me it is checking that staff have got, not saying that they're not doing their job, but checking that they have the resources and their time is freed up to dedicate themselves to this, a high priority task, month by month. For example, asking the question, are you able to order those specialised mega bags by this time next month, given the lead time of 6 to 8 weeks, without necessarily interfering in operational matters. It's getting back to this governance, measuring performance, making sure risks are managed. I mean, if we have another winter storm post 15 June that breaches, does some real damage, then that's bringing point number 6 from a governance point of view into sharp perspective.
Yeah, I guess one of the things that I've looked at and the research I've done on this was the effect of the Waihine storm back in '68, which occurred in April. And I think we want even trying to bring it forward to that, say, June 1 would be a plus.
Well, I'm confident that Richard has the ability and resources. He wouldn't go into the paper, and I appreciate he's here, and I said to him, be kind to him today. He wouldn't go into the paper and lay his job on the line in the ODT of February and say, we confidently expect to have this done by mid-June, unless he was confident. All I'm asking is that councillors give him the support and resources, encouragement, month by month. Are you going fine with this? Is there anything that we can do to make sure that the sand's there, that the money's there? There's 580,000 is a lot, isn't it, generally defined from the Parks and Reserves budget? But they're assuring us that will be there, so here's hoping.
Thank you.
Just to clarify on that point, Lyndon, I think the response from the Chief Financial Officer was that it would be managed within Council's whole budget,
right,
not necessarily just the Parks and Rec budget. But
okay.
Unfortunately, he's not here to ensure that that is, yeah, thank you.
That would make you breathe easily.
Yeah. Councillor Lord.
Oh, look, thanks for coming, Lyndon. Look, I think we all know how serious the risks are at Sinclair, but I just wonder, while Richard's in the room, Madam Chair, if there's any reason why he couldn't just confirm that everything is still on track and that he hasn't forgotten about things and that he's confident enough of his delivery of service.
Yeah.
I don't know that your job's on the line if you're not done by the 15th, but...
Look, as per my email, as Anderson went out yesterday, yes it is at this stage, and the matters that Lyndon's raised around ordering things in time, the mega bags and the sand is all being taken into account and planned accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard.
Any further questions? If not, Lyndon, I think at an overarching level, I mean, you're giving a specific example, but what you're really raising is the issue of non-financial reporting, which is progress against measures that aren't just the financial reports, and yes, that is very much on Council's agenda. Staff are working on looking at corporate dashboard reporting and working up a template for non-financial reporting. And so rest assured that at a high level, it certainly is being looked at, and specifically the issues that you've requested, I'll have a good conversation with Richard about, and we'll see if we can find a time-efficient way to ensure that the public are kept up to date.
Thank you very much, Trinity. Appreciate it. Thank you. And thank you, councillors.
So the second group on our agenda today is from the Tomahawk community. So I think we have Paul and Phil and Carissa and Lloyd here to speak to us. So welcome, and the next 10 minutes is all yours.
Okay. Kia ora koutou. My name is Carissa Cooper and I'm a resident of Tomahawk. I live a couple of doors down from the Tomahawk School site. So I have a vested interest in it. I guess the disappointing thing to say for me is how neglected that site has been over the years since Council purchased it. Council speaks of community interest in using the buildings that are there, but personally I think it would be very irresponsible of Council to hand over those buildings in the current state that they're in, especially with the pool. While one portion of the community may be interested in using it as a community hub or such, there are other vested parties in the community who have ideas for that site. And so I think for a consultation process with the community, is really important and needs to go ahead, and it needs to be really soon. As you'll know, because council have been out, there are constantly people accessing the pool, which is really dangerous. People are constantly accessing the main building. Fires have been lit inside there. It's just not an ideal situation. And so they're the main points that I want to make. Also just noting, there's a mention of Grants Braes Football Club, the buildings are owned by the club. They're actually owned by the council. The small prefab next to the buildings are owned by the club. So I just wanted to address that point as well.
Kia ora everybody, thank you for having us here today. Yeah, I'm also a resident of Tomahawk, and yeah, it's good to get the opportunity to talk to you guys on our thoughts and how we want to engage with I guess these community facilities. It has been some time since we've discussed this. It's been a few years in the making now, so I'm sort of dusting off what's in my head. So I wish I had been a bit more prepared for this, but I'm here now and I get the opportunity. Yeah, I guess all I want to say really is that we'd like to be involved in the process of understanding if we can use it for our own community. We've got lots of different interest groups in our community that have signalled that they would like to be part of it, and there's all sorts out there. I won't go into the detail, but there are a lot of interested parties, and you may have a question about that. We're also aware that it is going to be there's a cost involved with keeping that building going, so we also want to understand what those costs are as a community, which means we need time to sit down and do a bit of a detailed assessment. Can we actually sustainably run this building ourselves? So we'd like to be given the opportunity to take part in that. Agree with Chris's description of the buildings. They are really declining, rapidly declining, with just rotting away, and it's sad to see. Our community is growing. We are getting lots more children in the community now. There's many more people visiting our beaches at Tomahawk. So who knows what can happen to that in the future, and that building could be a really useful asset for whatever that is. So yeah, and I'd just like to conclude by saying we'd like to see a decision made moving forward, regardless, and in there is your option 2, which is to get an expression of interest for the future use of that building for the community, and I'd like to recommend that you proceed with that.
I think, is that it? Yeah, Phil Keeble. I just live just next to the school as well. I've been actively involved with the school and the pool, and still currently on the pool committee, which is obviously in limbo at the moment. Although the pool committee probably realised that the pool is now beyond redemption because it would need stuff. The pool committee were doing, when it all came to being sold, and that the pool committee had actually raised funds to re-roof the pool, and those funds are probably still available as long as the pool committee would, for ongoing even running of the school building if necessary. I mean, obviously the community meeting that was held arranged by Delina, there was a lot of diverse, interest, and obviously, although some of the community have sort of got a bit despondent in the whole process, there's still others in there that are trying to, forward the use of it, and it would be the school building itself, although, as I say, the pool committee realised that probably the pool is beyond, but some of the school buildings could well be used for, and I think Task Force Green also actually expressed an interest in basing themselves there because there's Apart from the school building, there's also a double garage workshop area. It would just be a shame to see it all go to waste. And that's basically all I have to say, I think, at the moment.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Keeble. Is that right? Yeah. Phil? Yeah, great. And all of through. Are you guys willing to take questions from? Yeah. Any questions, councillors? Councillor Wiley.
Do you have any thoughts on, ideally what you'd like it to look like in 5-10 years' time?
Yeah, look, we're a diverse community, and it could be used for the soccer club. It could be used for yoga, it could be used as a surf club. The beaches there are starting to get way more populated now. There's so many uses for it, and we have been sharing we were using the soccer club as our sort of go-to place because it was better than the existing community centre. So, yeah, I guess there's so many options for it. Yoga, there's all sorts.
School camps.
There's.
For me, blue skies picture would be a green space, so that there is that room as in the HECA concentration for June or but also in some part of grass plays football club, they would be really interested in that space that you mentioned for the pitches because there is a growing sport and a number of football pitches, especially the juniors that aren't ideal around the city, really happy and there's no ground scenes,
And we did hold a community meeting a couple of years ago now, getting ideas for what we wanted that to be like, and so we've noted that up, it's all written down on all the different ideas, so we could easily send that information through.
Any further questions? If not, thank you guys very much for coming in. Also appreciate and acknowledge that it's been quite a period since those first meetings, and appreciate the patience that the community has shown. And yeah, look forward to the next phase. Thank you.